Hey, what is going on, my friends, and welcome back to another video on the Ask Me Anything series. Well, in today's video, we are going over Healthier Choices Management Corp, ticker symbol HCMC. Now, the question that I'm getting loads and loads and loads. I mean, I got this question literally like 30 to 40% of all the HCMC questions that I received. So today's question is going to be Aloha Tyler. Aloha, my friend. That was so nice. My question for you today is whether or not you believe that HCMC is a long-term play, or is it only a lawsuit play? Should I realistically look to exit after the lawsuit ends, or could this thing actually be a good investment rather than a trade? Thanks, Julian. I actually really do like this question. I like how you broke it down and you gave me a few different options to kind of assess the question and to answer them piece by piece. So thank you for that, Julian. I really do appreciate the question. Now, if you do want access to the answers that I give to these questions as soon as I do give them, definitely go down to the link in the description. It'll bring you over to the Patreon, and that's where I'm fully transparent about every trade I make, my trade portfolio. I write a daily newsletter every morning at 6 in the morning, and they also just get every piece of information I do. They get early access to all of these videos, etc., etc. So definitely go check that out and let me know what you think. Also, if you are looking to expand out into a new brokerage or start your own investment journey, I highly recommend using the referral link down in the description below. Whenever you use the referral link, you'll click it, it'll bring you over to Webull. You create an account and deposit $100. You'll get 2 free stocks valued all the way up to $1,850. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into this question. This is the big question that everyone asks me, and so let's get this thing going. Well, whenever, we think about this question, there's one thing that I want to address just right off the gate is that I think this is a long-term play / investment no matter what way you cut the cake, right? My honest opinion is that I think this lawsuit is going to take some time. It's going to take quite a long time. And in comparison to some of the other trades that featured on this channel, it's a long-term play, right? We have to consider the fact that there are just so many different routes in which each company can take to push this thing back or to buy themselves time. And I do believe that a company like Philip Morris is going to utilize every single one of those routes, right? So we have to consider things like this motion to dismiss. I mean, this bought Philip Morris almost 6 weeks now of extra time just to push this thing back to get their response ready or to figure out exactly how they are going to defend themselves. So if we compare, if we consider all of the different routes in which they can take that are very similar to the motion to dismiss, that is just going to push this thing back and push this thing back and push this thing back. Well, I think that this is going to take quite some time. These court cases, these trials, they're not very fast things. Now, of course, they could be a settlement just out of nowhere like that, but that is just not my true anticipation of what's going to happen. Now, I know a lot of people are saying that HCMC's lawyers are working and they're not going to get paid until there is a result. And even if that is the case, that doesn't, as fast as HCMC wants to push this thing, they can't force it to go by super duper fast. And of course, there's 3 parties, of course, right? We got HCMC, we have Philip Morris, and then we have the court itself. And all of those have their own moving parts. So personally speaking, I think one way or another, this is a long-term play, but I do understand your question. I know you're basically saying that, okay, when this lawsuit does end, is that time to get out, or is this something I should invest my money into and let it sit for years and years to come and actually invest in them as a company and a business rather than just a trade? So I think the best way to go about this is I'm just going to explain to you where I'm at personally, how I plan on going about this, and you kind of just base your own opinion off of it, as of course I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. I'm simply just going on YouTube giving my opinion on stocks. But with that being said, again, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to let you know what exactly I plan on doing, and hopefully it can provide you with a little bit of insight as to, maybe what a good strategy could be for yourself, right? So, whenever it comes to this lawsuit, I truly do believe HCMC is going to win. I have not much doubt in my mind. I'm not a lawyer at the end of the day, but after reviewing a lot of the different cases, after doing comparable, checking out comparable cases within the state of Georgia, just seeing how the rulings have typically gone when certain evidence is provided, I just genuinely believe that with the lack of defense that Philip Morris really has, I mean, the defense in which they offered just was a little bit... It was just weird. It was a little bit odd in the way in which they went about it with that 97% combustion-free, 100% combustion-free product and all of that stuff. I truly do believe that HCMC has a good possibility to win. And in that situation, I think a few things are going to happen that will be very important to decide whether or not this is just a play or an investment. So the very first thing that's going to happen is I do believe that this stock price is just going to absolutely fly at an unrealistic rate really, really high. We have to think about the amount of people who have been following HCMC. There's a lot of people who may not be in the stock right now. They might have sold whenever we were at, maybe up in the 0.002s or something like that. And they might have sold, but they are keeping a very, very close eye on this thing. If we do take a look at the amount of people who are still searching for HCMC, if we're taking a look at the volume, it's not as high as it was in the past, but it's still up there. If we take a look at certain, subreddits, if we take a look at stock twits, if we look at Wall Street Bets, all of these places are still full of volume. Now, of course, there are a lot more bears at this point, but we know that people who make investments in the penny stock market tend to be pretty, emotional. So it doesn't surprise me too much. But one thing that I will say is that I truly believe that in the case in which HCMC was to win the lawsuit, that we would see a big flooding back from all of those investors who got out at one point, because that is the reason they got in the first place. Now, the longer this goes on, I think the less the volume will be. So I think if this is 2 years from now, people probably won't be as interested in it as if they win now. So that is something to consider. I think it's very limited to exactly how long this is going to take, but I do believe that even if it's towards the end of this year, that we will still see a massive flooding of investors. Now, we have to consider the fact that the short volume is absolutely ridiculous right now, and if that was to continue down the line, but we do see them win this lawsuit, have that major catalyst, and then we see all these people flood back in, we could definitely squeeze out some of those shorts, which could increase that stock price even further. So all of these things are things we have to consider whenever we think about exactly how far this thing's going to go. I personally think that if they were to win the lawsuit from the level at it's at now, I think a 10 to 20x is possible. And I know that sounds crazy, but I do believe that we've seen this thing go up 5, 6, 700% for no reason at some points, right? In anticipation that we would get this lawsuit started, we saw this thing climbing 500%. So I do believe that it's not out of the question to say a 10 to 20x is very, very possible if they are to, accomplish this major catalyst for the company. I mean, this would realistically change everything for the company itself. So with that being said, I think the big question comes down to, at that point, if it is going, unrealistically high, if it does 10x, 20x, the question that everyone has is what to do at that point, right? Well, I think that in the scenario in which it does climb that high, the amount of outstanding shares in which they have is going to create a very, very unrealistic market cap or valuation for this company. I think that would just be absolutely ridiculous, especially if they are still at the same amount of outstanding shares that they have now. So I think that's the first thing that'll likely be, on the tip of my mind or in the back of my mind whenever I think like, okay, is this even, should I stay in this right now? Because it doesn't make any sense. And at that point, if we did see it 10x, 20x, it wouldn't make sense, right? I think we would be at a very unrealistic valuation for the company and the stock. Even if they were to come up on, a couple $1 billion, I think they would still at that point be too high. So what I would personally do in that moment is sell my shares while it is at an unrealistic level. We see it happen time and time again off big catalysts. We'll see certain companies have IPOs. We'll see certain companies have mergers, and their stock price will climb to levels that are just not maintainable. Then from that point forward, we'll start to see them work their way back down and establish some type of floor. They will establish some type of channel or some type of consolidation phase that actually makes a little bit more sense. It's a little bit more realistic. And that's what I think would happen with HCMC after maybe about 3 to 5 trading days. That's my guess. So after that was to happen, I think that the company would then use some of the cash in which they would get from a settlement. Hopefully, I think that's important. Like, I really do hope a royalty agreement would be nice, but I do want to see a large lump sum of cash come from this. I think that would be optimal. And with that, I think that they would then be capable of buying back shares once that stock price has kind of declined, because I can't imagine that they would buy back shares while the stock price is super at unrealistic levels. As many of us would anticipate, it would fall, short volume would increase, etc. So I would say that this is what I would need to do to get, to get back in, right? Because like I said, at those unrealistic levels, I'm going to exit that position. So as it does fall, as it's, as we mentioned, start to create a consolidation phase, create a floor, meet some resistance, and that's more of a realistic level. And then if they were to buy back their shares, if we were to figure out some of those outstanding shares, get that down a lot, and I'm talking like a lot, 300 billion is ridiculous. And so if they were able to do that, and then at that point, the market cap, the valuation makes a lot more sense. And then we start to factor in some of the capabilities that, going forward, this settlement just unlocked. I think at that point is when I would re-enter as a long-term investment. Now, the reason I would re-enter as a long-term investment is I think if they were capable of winning the lawsuit, like I think they will, on top of buying back their shares and creating a more realistic valuation, they have things going for the company that are super duper bullish, right? We have to consider the fact that they are within 2 industries at the moment, kind of sort of 3, but realistically 2, that are going to be growing at very, very rapid rates. I mean, we have to consider the health and wellness industry and the vaping industry are both growing very fast, which is going to be an important factor for this company, considering that is what all of their their subsidiaries are going to be focused on. Now, whenever we do think about, their financials are going to increase dramatically if they are capable of winning a couple $1 billion. Of course, there's going to be a lot of fees. Of course, there's going to be a lot of transactions that are going to go into this trial. So, of course, they're going to have to pay that off. Then they're going to have to buy back shares. So, they're not going to have the most crazy amount of cash, but definitely more than they have now. I think they will then be able to use that to apply it to their businesses. I think they'll be able to use it to expand their portfolio of subsidiaries, which would, of course, generate more and more revenue. Now, lastly, if they are able to come to some type of licensing or royalty agreement with Philip Morris through a win on patent infringement, that would then provide them with a lot more incoming revenue through a very large consumer base of over 14 million IQOS users. And I think all of that information does make this a pretty interesting investment long term. Now, personally speaking, this wouldn't be one of my biggest investments. I mean, I have maybe 10,000 in Apple, 10,000 in Tesla, 12,000 in Store Capital. It wouldn't be one of those, but just personally for me speaking, because I think that the industries in which they are in aren't the fastest growing, and I don't think that they're going to show the highest signs of potential. But I do believe that whenever we consider a long-term investment, that this is definitely one that has that potential due to these multiple assets and the multiple routes of income in which they will receive through a big win in Philip Morris. And then we also have to consider they've been implementing certain things, new things, like their vitamin store. They re-implemented that. And I think going forward, again, with a lot of cash, they will be able to expand out their business and create a much more appealing company and stock itself. So at that point, just to kind of sum everything up, to give you a very simple answer, and whenever it comes to this company, I think that it's a great long-term investment, but I think when it comes to this lawsuit, the best way to maximize efficiency, maximize profits in the situation in which they win the lawsuit is going to simply be trade the lawsuit. I'm in before all this happens. I'm going to ride this puppy up. If it goes up 1020x, I will then take profits, wait for it to establish a realistic level, and then from that point, re-enter if there is a share buyback, and then let this business start to flow as a long-term investment, maybe something a dollar cost average on, or use my profits to build up the position, etc. So that is what I would do with this company, and that is about, the clearest answer I can give without being a financial advisor, because of course I can't say do this or do that. So that's what I would do personally, and that's what I plan on doing. So Julian, I hope that does offer you some insight. Now, again, if you guys do want your own answers, if you have questions that you want answered, definitely send them to me on Instagram, send them to me on Snapchat, Twitter, send them to me through my Patreon that is linked down in the description. I will try to answer them there, but if they are a great question like this one, I will definitely answer them in a video. With that being said, I hope you guys did enjoy today's video. If you did, you can let me know by smashing that like button and subscribing to the channel if you are new. I post on this channel 2 to 3 times every single day, and I can't wait to see you all next time. Peace.